Hello, and welcome to the 17th edition of Talking Solutions, the podcast of the Association for Solution Focused Hypnotherapy. I'm Sally Hare, and today we'll be looking at how hypnotherapy can help children and young people with a wide range of issues. To help me discuss this, I'll be talking to Julie Taylor and Marcia Eden for Hypno for Children. Based in Faversham, Kent, Julie and Marcia are both experienced hypnotherapists with several decades of experience between them working with both adults and children. Alongside their direct client work, they're also supervisors and trainers, and established Hypno for Children in 2021 to empower and boost the confidence of existing qualified hypnotherapists by offering their Mind Hack system, an integrative approach for practitioners to work from when seeking to work with children and young people. They have a passion to help children and young people create a strong, good mental health blueprint for life. So, hi, Julie and Marcia. It's great to have you with us today.
Hi,
Morning, Sally.
good to be here.
So, first off, what inspired you to set up Hypno for Children?
Well, actually, Sally, we had the idea for Hypno for Children quite a while before we actually set it up. And because we've both got busy private practices and lots of other projects on the go, we just never really got round to it. But 2020 happened, COVID came along. Suddenly there was more time, and it really focused our minds, especially as even in the early days, statistics were already showing that mental health with children was suffering already and was projected to become worse over that time. And so we could see that there was going to be an increase in demand. We wanted to kind of help. We wanted to try and help this situation. So we looked to developing the course, and we took all of the skill sets that we had between us. We looked at what we had been doing when we worked with children, and we just started to put together a framework. We thought it would be useful to have a framework that allows you to kind of set your sessions and work in a really methodical way with a child so that you knew where you were going, basically. But it's also a very flexible approach because there's so many different therapy genres within it. It's very flexible as well. So yeah, Hypno for Children was born. First course ran in July 21, and we're building that family of practitioners, and we've been blown away by the response that we've had. It's been really, really positive. So it's been great.
Yeah, we both have such a massive passion for teaching children and young people how to kind of emotionally regulate, because there's just not enough of that out there. And one of the ways that we do this, we get the children to set up what we call like a wellbeing toolbox. And we teach them lots of great calming and stress management techniques, as well as any other helpful ways that they might already have. So sometimes we're asking them questions: what helps you when you're feeling anxious about going to school, and bringing that into their wellbeing toolbox as well.
Them with what they're bringing to, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, and teaching them some new ones. And we even create like an actual physical wellbeing toolbox with some children, where they decorate it and they bring things in, and we put reminders in the wellbeing toolbox of different things that they can do. So when they are feeling really stressed, they can go to their wellbeing toolbox and think, right, what have I got in there? Because when you're in that stressful state, you can't really think rationally of what would help me. So there's cues in their little toolbox that helps really to remind them.
Kind of tactile that they've got there to
exactly.
Remind them
Yeah. And I think it's also really important, as part of what we do, is about acknowledging uncomfortable feelings as well, but also showing them ways that they can move on from them, and understanding how their brain works and things like that is just so empowering for them. So it's okay to feel these emotions, but it's also, there's some tools that we can help you to re-regulate when you're feeling that. So our passion also with setting up Hypno for Children was to create a family of practitioners that are out there helping children, teaching them all the tools that we've created, over the years of many years of working with children.
So tell me about your experience of working with young children and young people. You're talking about the boxes that they've got. What sort of issues do you see, and how can they get in the way for them?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I think the issues that we might see presenting in the therapy room these days, post-COVID, has changed. There is a lot of school anxiety, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? social anxiety, health anxiety as well. Exam stress is quite a big thing that might present in a therapy room because there's so much pressure on children with testing and exams, going on to college and university. It's huge amounts of pressure that they partly put on themselves, but also, you know, society shows them that is something that they must achieve. Sadly, self-harm shows up more often as well as a result of this extra pressure. And also something that we see quite a lot is neurodiversity issues when parents and children are navigating mainstream schooling with neurodiversity. The expectations, the school protocols, they find that really difficult. So we see quite a lot of neurodiverse clients as well. And it works really well for them. Our practitioners often ask those questions: can we use this with children with autism or ADHD? And the answer is absolutely yes. They respond really well. We also see kind of the standard, you know, phobias, fears, things that you might expect generally in those age groups. All of those things can massively impact on family life. It puts an enormous amount of stress on the children and the parents, and that will often lead to lack of sleep, adding to the stress and the pressure. And that will often also mean that children are maybe not attending school, or they're having trouble getting to school. And as a result, they might feel isolated, disconnected from their education. And it's a difficult kind of path for parents to tread. Sometimes they just don't know what to do about it, where to go, what's available.
And I think the volume, as Julie said, the volume of children clients has definitely increased post-COVID. And that's at the same time when the NHS have really swamped and waiting lists are just horrendous to get help for children, which I think is why we're finding, and our practitioners are finding, there's just so much more demand to help children. And by teaching them the kind of the tools that we teach them, they can be helped quite quickly as well, rather than having to wait a year or more for help on the NHS. So we often see children when they're in crisis as well, because they're of those long waiting lists. You know, parents have tried to go through the GP, which obviously is a great route too, but we can be like an in-between as well service to help give them some tools to start to self-manage.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned actually exam anxiety, because our last podcast was on exam anxiety, because it is such a big issue. But obviously, you know, you work with children, young people of all ages. You know, in your experience, what does help? You know, you've got your resource boxes. You know, how do you work with differently with children, young people around different ages?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of protocols that we follow, a couple of frameworks that we've set up. The first one is MindHack that we've mentioned already. And then the second one is something that we call Study Calm, which is specifically for exam stress. So to build confidence around and to kind of empower youngsters and teenagers to kind of take control of their education, so that they feel like it's something they want to do rather than something they're told they must or have to do. That often makes a difference. Just the reframing of that often makes a difference. But I think we can help them understand how their brain works. We always do a bit of brain education. We take them through, in a child-friendly way, how to understand what's going on in their brain, to normalize it. And as Marcia said earlier, to acknowledge that we all, as human beings, we all have uncomfortable feelings from time to time, or overwhelming feelings from time to time, and that's perfectly okay and it's perfectly normal. But it's knowing how to regulate it and bring yourself back to a resourceful state that makes the difference for how you move on from that, really. We get them to investigate their thought patterns. So we might teach them about fight and flight. We'll introduce ideas around the thinking patterns that might be getting in the way, like catastrophizing and mind reading, things like that. We also talk a fair bit about fixed mindset and growth mindset, and how when we have a growth mindset, we acknowledge that this might be a tough moment or we're having a tough time, but we have the ability to look ahead and see that it will get better and that we've got resources to kind of help ourselves. And I think that brings about some self-awareness, which kind of then opens up that possibility for some positive change, whatever they're after. And we use a combination approach, as you said in the introduction there. We've got a combination of therapies that we use. So there's always something that will resonate with that child, whoever we're working with. So we use hypnotherapy, we use neuro-linguistic programming, we use thought-field therapy, which is a tapping therapy, positive psychology, a little bit of life coaching in there and mindfulness in there. And we've built the framework of MindHack around that. So we teach how to make those sessions engaging and fun, especially if you're working in that younger age group. So we might work from anywhere from 5 right the way up. But in that 5 to 9 age group, hypnosis looks very different. And the way that we might work with that child will be a combination of those various therapies that we've just talked about. And going back to the wellbeing toolbox that Marcia mentioned, that we see as an essential build for every client that we see, we've recently started to encourage the family involved to set up a family wellbeing toolbox. And we kind of sell it in a way that it's like a mental health first aid kit. So when, if your child comes home from school and they've got a headache or something like that, then you might go to the physical first aid kit and get the Calpol out or something like that. You know what to do, you know how to handle it. But if they come home from school and they're really upset because somebody was mean to them or they've got in trouble at school that day, we might not know how to handle that. And so we kind of encourage them to set up a family wellbeing toolbox. Things that they might already know. So maybe they've got a pet and they know that, if they snuggle up with their cat or their dog, that calms them down. That's a resource, but they might not have recognized that up until that point. So we just get them to put in anything that makes them happy as a family, things that they know makes them relax and calm as a family. And then we teach them kind of lots of different techniques as well.
And as Julie mentioned, when we're working with the younger children, say between about 5 and 9, 10, the sessions are usually a lot shorter. The attention span is not so big as an older child, and it might not look like hypnosis to the parents that's happening in the room, because quite often we're using play, we're using drawing, creative tools, and we're kind of weaving in suggestions rather than a formal what people expect. So sometimes parents are a bit surprised by that. Obviously we tell them, but they expect sometimes a child to be laying on a bed, eyes closed, and that's not going to happen with 5-year-olds. So some of the things that we teach our practitioners is how to do a more eyes open type of hypnosis. But also, even when we're working with the younger children, we help get them to help us to create a bespoke hypnosis script that we record for them and they can listen at home. And because they're very involved in it, they're really on board with it and they just love it, don't they? They just love helping you to create a script.
Yeah,
so we
imagine that, yeah.
To be honest, they come up with far better ideas than we could imagine.
Yeah,
because they've got such good imagination.
Yeah, tapping into that wonderful imagination.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting what you're saying about, really introducing quite grown-up concepts about sort of growth mindsets and about how the brain works, but by in such a flexible way that it just sounds like fun and like tapping into their resources and kind of empowering them to find their own way through these things, and also sort of spreading it through the families that were building that growth mindset up with the family well-being.
Absolutely, because there's likely to be adults within the family setting who have not been taught how to regulate their emotions. I mean, let's face it, most of us aren't taught how to do that. It's you come across it if you're looking for some help with it. If you're having sort of issues with controlling anger or something like that, you might come across it. But generally, we're not taught how to do it. And so we just model what we see around us. So we're all just replicating what everyone else is doing. So it's a great way to build emotional intelligence as well in children and adults. I mean,
And that's a valuable life skill, isn't it? I was going to
Oh,
say,
huge. Yeah,
yeah.
huge. I think that pays or ties into our ethos about creating that good mental health blueprint, so that if you're learning that at a young age, you naturally just take that into adulthood. You don't think about it. It just becomes part of your core nature. You become a much more resourceful, resilient person. You have much more of a growth mindset. So you're always looking to how can you resolve, what's the solution here, how can I be resourceful. And they're great. I mean, they're great entrepreneurial skills, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I think teaching the parents as well, as we mentioned earlier, about the brain and how the brain works, because when their child is being really dysregulated, if they can stay calm and help the child to use some of the resources, because at that stage you can't rationalize with them, you know, when they're in that dysregulated state. And sometimes that's great for the parents to understand that as well, because then they will approach that in a different way, and you know, it becomes better for the family.
Absolutely. So we're all about sort of self-empowerment at Talking Solutions. If someone's listening who thinks hypnotherapy might help them or their child or young person, you know, what would you suggest they do? What can they do today?
Yeah, I mean, it's firstly, we'd probably send our best wishes to them, because we know, as being parents ourselves, it can often feel really difficult and very overwhelming if our child is struggling in some way and we don't know how to resolve that for them. So, but we'd also like to kind of be really hopeful as well, offer hope, because although it can feel like a big thing that's going on, it can feel like a huge hurdle. As we know, using hypnotherapy when you're working with the mind, sometimes internal shifts happen really easily. And it doesn't even have to come from therapy sometimes. It can just be somebody in the right place at the right time who says the right thing that causes us to understand something differently. And we have an internal shift. So sometimes it's not as scary as it might seem. But we'd also, our advice would be to look for a reputable therapist. So go to any of the big professional bodies, because the professional bodies will require their members to have formal qualifications. Or you can go to our website, where we've got a whole family of practitioners that we're so proud to have there, because it's so lovely that when we get approached by somebody somewhere else in the country, that we can say, well, you know, we're in Kent, so we can't see you face to face. However, we might have a practitioner who's near you. And that's been amazing to be able to kind of pass that on to other people. So you can look at our website, which is www.hypnoforchildren.co.uk. And the Hypno for Children has got the number 4 in it. Yep. We've got a vast array of practitioners all around the UK now. The family is growing all the time. We've also got a practitioner in America, one in Australia, and one in Greece. And that is all growing as our people hear more and more about us. Many of our practitioners will offer online. That is dependent on the age of the child as well. So sometimes in that much younger age group, online might not work as well. So we would look for somebody who might be more face-to-face or close by. And then have a look through, see who, just from seeing somebody's photograph and reading their profile, see what, are there anybody on that, is there anybody on that list who resonates with you? Even show the pictures to your child, because they can be drawn to somebody. And then make a little short list of practitioners that you think you'd like to have a chat with. Give them a call. Most of our practitioners will offer a free 15-minute discovery call, where you can just have a chat with them, tell them a bit about what's been going on, ask any questions, and also then they'll tell you a little bit about how they work as well. Another really important thing to do is to talk to your child about that process. Have them involved in that decision making, because if they're involved in that process, the outcomes of therapy are often enhanced. They're better because they're on board. Sometimes we'll have people come to us and the parent will say, well, my child has asked for this. maybe they've read about it or seen it on social media or something like that. And that's great because they're absolutely on board and they're already looking for a solution, which is fantastic because that shows a growth mindset straight away. They're not caught up in that issue. They're looking, how can they resolve it?
I think also if you're looking for a hypnotherapist outside of our website, just make sure they've done a really robust hypnotherapy training. Most professional bodies would require their members to have an enhanced DBS if they're working with children as well. So you can always ask to see that as well, just to make sure that who you're working
all our
with.
members, we have that requirement, CPD and supervision, that kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. So there's just the things that you can look out for when you're searching for someone in your area.
Thank you. And I think you mentioned doing a couple of sort of self-help exercises today.
You did, yeah.
Yes, we thought it would be nice just to offer to anyone who's listening just a really simple calming breathing technique. We've split it in two ways. So Marcia is going to show it in terms of for the younger children, maybe. So maybe that 5 to kind of 9 age group. And then we adapt it to the older sort of 10 to 14 plus age group as well. And it's just a really useful, calming little technique. It can be done in minutes, not hours. And it allows it's like the first thing that we might put in the wellbeing toolbox, to be honest. We teach pretty much every single child client, probably adult as well, these little breathing techniques, and they're so simple. People often come back and they're quite blown away by the impact that they can make because they're so simple. We don't think that it could make a big change, but it does.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, one of them, the one for the younger children that we've developed is called Teddy Breathing. I mean, I was using this recently with a little girl. As soon as I started to do this breathing technique with her, she started yawning, she started relaxing. So it's a great tool just to use at bedtime, and it's easy for parents to use this at bedtime, just to start calming their child down. And with breathing techniques, one of the ones that we do, we get them to their out breath to be longer than their in breath, which helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So it is a real great hack into calming everything down. So for the Teddy breathing, we get the child to, if we're in the session, we get them to bring one of their favourite cuddly toys, and we get them to kind of lay back and put the cuddly toy onto their tummy, and then to start to breathe by breathing in and pushing the teddy out. So it just starts to get them used to that tummy breathing. So they push the teddy out as they breathe in and relax it back in as they breathe out. So we just get that going to start with, just so they just start to recognise actually that proper belly breathing that will help calm them down. And then we start to add counting into it. So we want their out breaths to become longer than their in breath. So for instance, we might get them to count to 5 as they breathe in and 7 as they breathe out, but we're also looking at their breathing pattern. So for some children that might be 3 as they breathe in and 5 as they breathe out. So it's finding the numbers that work for them, as long as that out breath becomes longer than the in breath. It's just something that's just so simple, and it just works so well. It can help get your children to sleep. So definitely try that one. And Julie's going to share one that's for the older children.
Yeah, we'd also say, Sally, that we encourage the parents to do that alongside their child as well. So, if you're in the home environment, especially before bedtime, because sometimes before bedtime things have got kind of riled up, or maybe, children don't want to go to bed, then you can literally lay down beside them, you choose a toy, and it becomes an interactive thing, and then something that they look forward to. And you'd be surprised actually how children are very good. You might teach them that as an aid to help them calm down before bed, but they're very good at then interpreting that and translating that into something else. And they might come back to a session and say to you, oh, I was really worried before I went into school, so I did some teddy breathing. And it blows my mind when they do that, because they've actually worked that out for themselves, that this isn't just for bedtime, this works at other times as well. So when we're working with the older age group, we do something called hot chocolate breathing. the concept of that is exactly the same. We want that slightly longer out breath than the in breath to send the signal via the vagus nerve out to the parasympathetic nervous system that just lets the body know that we're safe, everything is fine, and everything internally can then calm down. Hot chocolate breathing, I sometimes talk to the parents and I say, if it's okay with you, it might be that the first couple of times that they do this or practice this at home, that they actually can have a hot chocolate, which always gets you brownie points with the children. And so I asked the child that I'm working with to tell me about their favorite hot chocolate. Obviously, if they don't like hot chocolate, we'll use a different drink. But what's their favorite hot chocolate? Have they got a favorite mug that they have that hot chocolate in? Do they like cream and marshmallows on top? And then I get them to imagine that they've got that mug of hot chocolate in front of them. For the in-breath, I get them to imagine that they're just going to bend down and breathe in that lovely hot chocolatey smell through their nose. So just breathing that in and just holding that lovely kind of hot chocolate smell with a nice calm sort of And then as they breathe out slowly through their mouth, they're doing that as if they're cooling their hot chocolate down, as if they're blowing across the top of their hot chocolate and cooling it down. And so we normally suggest sort of 3 to 5 of those breaths. And it's just, again, another really good way to just calm everything down. I once had a parent who came back and said that they did that themselves when they were in a work situation. They had a cup of coffee in their hand in a meeting and they were feeling super anxious in the meeting. And so they just did that. And they said, nobody knew I was doing it because I just looked like I was enjoying my cup of coffee. So even when you're teaching it to children, it will translate for the parent if you've got a parent in the room as well. And it's great to kind of build that relationship between children and parents. Equally, I had a child once who reminded their mum to do some breathing when she was anxious.
That offers real opportunity for connection.
Totally, yeah. And normalizes the fact that we get anxious, and that's not a bad thing. It's knowing how to manage that anxiety and knowing how to calm from that. That's the important thing. So it just kind of normalizes things that happen in everyday life. Takes the sting out of what's going on, I think.
Yes, yeah. Well, I feel calmer just listening to that, actually.
Brilliant.
So what's next for Hypno for Children? What projects have you got coming up?
Oh, so 2025, we've got lots of plans. We're planning to make some professional recordings of our training, because currently we deliver our training via live interactive Zoom to make it available to more people. But we're also going to look at developing learn at your own pace kind of training. So we're looking to do some professional recordings for that. We're hoping that will hit the market later this year. We are developing our teen wellbeing workbook. We already have a workbook for the younger age group for our practitioners so that they can use that in sessions. And we've had some really good feedback on that from parents and children as well as practitioners. So we're going to develop a teen wellbeing workbook as well to share with our practitioners. We're also thinking that we attended the UK Hypnosis Convention at the end of last year, and lots of people were asking us, we had our workbooks to kind of show as examples, lots of people were asking us, can you buy those? Can you just buy those as a parent or something like that? And currently, no, you can't, but we will work on that as well. So kind of bringing that to the market as well. We've got 3 course dates already, so we tend to deliver our training 3 times a year, March, July and November. We are also looking to have our training course accredited so that it becomes an accredited CPD course through the National Council for Hypnotherapy. And I mentioned we went to the UK Hypnosis Convention in London for the first time this year. This year we had a stand. We were just kind of building our awareness and letting people know that we're there. And in 2025, we hope to apply to be speakers at the convention, where we'll give a little intro to our Mind Hack system. We've got ideas of starting a podcast. A lot of people asked us at the convention, do you do a podcast? No, we don't, but it's given us ideas, and you've obviously given us ideas, because the timing of you coming and asking us to come on the podcast kind of tied in very much with the convention. We just got back from that.
Yeah.
And obviously we're looking forward to working with lots more families and children to bring about better, stronger mental health generally, you know.
Yeah, also
Exciting
we're
times,
looking
yeah.
to write a book as well for
My goodness.
hypnotherapists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also perhaps also working more with parents as well, because sometimes I do work with parents rather than the children.
Yes.
But we don't really advertise that. It's just kind of happened when I've had someone that's got a 5-year-old that lives a long way away that wants to work with me. I've actually worked with the parents to teach their children, and then we've developed like a script, and I've done a recording for them, and that worked really well as well. So perhaps even working more on that, working more with the parents, that to give them the skills and tools.
Exciting. Well,
Yeah,
thank
very
you so
exciting.
much, Julia Marcia. It's really great talking to you. And you can find information about our other podcasts on our website, www.asfsh.com. You'll also find articles, information and resources, plus, of course, our solution-focused hypnotherapist directory, where you'll be able to look through the profiles of our fully qualified members and choose just the right therapist for you. So next time, I'll be talking to Emma Traby from Inspired to Change about their research into the effectiveness of solution-focused hypnotherapy dealing with anxiety and depression in the Northumbria Police Force. It's a really fascinating report, so I'm very much looking forward to discussing it. Until then, I'm Sally from the AFSFH. Thank you so much to Julia Marcia, and this has been Talking Solutions.